Welcome to the Science of Hockey, the podcast where we break down the science behind ice hockey. I'm the analyst, your host, and every week we explore the data, research, and evidence that shape how we play, train, and understand the game of hockey. From biomechanics to performance psychology, we take you beyond the rink and into the research lab, giving you insights that go beyond hearsay and into what really makes the difference on the ice. Whether you're a player, a coach, a parent, or just someone passionate about the sport, we're here to bring you scientifically backed information in a language that's friendly and easy to understand. So grab your skates and let's dive into the science of hockey. Welcome to the Science of Hockey, where we uncover the factors shaping the game's future. I'm your host, the analyst. Today, we explore the health challenges faced by junior elite hockey players, from acute injuries to the hidden burden of overuse issues. Stay tuned for insights that could redefine training and prevention strategies.
All right, strap on those skates, folks. We're diving deep into junior elite hockey today.
Sounds exciting.
It is, but we're not analyzing highlight reels or anything like that. This deep dive is all about player health, something we don't talk enough about.
Absolutely. It's a crucial aspect, especially at the junior elite level. These young athletes push their bodies to the limit.
And the research is kind of alarming, honestly. Did you know that at any given time, like right now, 1 in 4 junior elite hockey players is dealing with some kind of health problem?
Wow, 1 in 4. That's a significant number.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And this isn't just speculation. This comes from a study done in Norway where researchers followed over 200 players for a whole season.
A whole season? That's a lot of data.
It is. And they didn't just focus on the major injuries either. We're talking about everything from broken bones to sniffles, the full picture of player health.
That's smart because often those minor things can add up and impact performance or even lead to more serious issues down the line.
Exactly. So let's get into the details of this study. They followed 206 elite male players aged 15 to 20 for 44 weeks straight.
These were serious athletes then, not just playing for fun on the weekends.
No, these were dedicated players, all attending specialized sports academies. And what makes this study so valuable is they didn't just track time loss injuries, the ones that keep a player off the ice. They wanted the complete health burden.
The health burden, yeah. It's not just about the severity of an injury, but how common it is too, right?
Right. It considers both. So I guess the first thing that comes to mind with hockey is those big hits, the collisions, the fights, the acute injuries.
And you'd be right to think that. Those acute injuries were the most common problem they found, making up almost half the total health burden.
Ouch. Is hockey really as brutal as it looks?
Well, it is a physically demanding sport, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But what surprised me wasn't just the number of acute injuries, but the types.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What were they finding?
Well, you'd expect things like broken bones and obviously concussions to be right at the top of the list. And those were definitely up there.
Makes sense. Those are the ones you always hear about.
But what they found was that hand injuries were a much bigger problem than people realize. They made up a huge part of that acute injury burden.
Oh, yeah. Actually, when you think about it, blocking shots, gripping the stick, all those checks and slashes, hands take a lot of abuse.
Exactly. And this is something coaches, parents, players, everyone involved needs to pay attention to. We focus so much on helmets and pads, but those hands are vulnerable too.
And what about other areas? Like knees and ankles always seem to be a concern in fast-paced sports. Were those high up there too?
Definitely, especially knee injuries.
Yeah.
And you know what's really cool about this study? They created a risk matrix to visualize all this data.
A risk matrix. What's that?
Basically, it's a way to see all the different types of injuries, how often they occur, and how severe they are. Like literally see which injuries are the most common.
Oh, so like a roadmap for prevention.
Exactly. And it doesn't just focus on those big, scary injuries, but also the smaller, naggy ones that might not seem like a big deal at the time, but those can add up,
Oh, absolutely. It's not just about avoiding the season-ending injuries, but minimizing all those little aches and pains that can lead to bigger problems.
You got it. It's a whole new way of thinking about injury prevention in hockey.
Welcome back. We're continuing our deep dive into the health of these incredible junior elite hockey players. Last time, we were going over some research from Norway, and it was kind of eye-opening to see how common injuries actually are.
Yeah, we saw that at any given moment, 25% of these young athletes are dealing with some sort of health problem, big or small. It's a lot to think about.
And it's not just those dramatic injuries that take someone out of the game for weeks. We were starting to talk about how even the smaller repetitive motions, those overuse injuries, can really add up.
Oh yeah, overuse injuries are no joke.
Huh.
In the study, they accounted for almost a third of the total health burden.
That's huge. And what really surprised me was that hip and groin injuries were more common than shoulder problems.
I know, right? You'd think with all the checking and falling, shoulders would take the biggest hit.
Exactly. So what's going on there?
Well, think about the mechanics of skating. All that twisting and turning puts a lot of stress on the hips and groin. And this is where coaches and trainers have a huge role to play. They need to pay attention to how players are training.
So it's not just about pushing them to skate harder and faster, but teaching them how to protect their bodies while they're doing it.
Exactly. If a player's using bad form when they shoot, skate, even stick handle, it puts stress on their joints and muscles. And that's a recipe for overuse injuries.
Like building a house on a shaky foundation, eventually something's going to crack.
Perfect analogy. So what can coaches do to strengthen that foundation and prevent these overuse injuries?
Yeah, what are some practical tips?
Well, first of all, coaches need to be educated themselves. They need to know what good form looks like and be able to spot little errors before they become bad habits.
I bet video analysis would be helpful for that.
Oh yeah, video can be a game changer. You can slow down the movements, really see where the imbalances are, and then work with the player to correct them.
Makes sense. And it's not just about what happens on the ice either, right? Strength and conditioning programs need to be designed with injury prevention in mind.
Absolutely. It's not just about getting bigger muscles. It's about building a balanced and resilient athlete. So that means things like flexibility, mobility, core strength, all of that.
So we're talking yoga and Pilates for hockey players now.
You got it. And we can't forget rest and recovery. That's something that often gets overlooked, especially with these competitive athletes who always want to push harder.
Yeah, it's easy to fall into that more is always better trap, but that's not how our bodies work.
No, rest is just as important as training. It's when your body repairs and rebuilds. And if you don't get enough rest, you end up with fatigue, burnout, and eventually injury.
So coaches need to be mindful of not just the volume of training, but also the intensity and how often they're pushing their players.
Exactly. And they need to create a team culture where players feel comfortable speaking up if they're feeling sore or tired. It's all about catching those early warning signs before a little problem turns into a big one.
Makes sense. And all of this brings us to another important piece of the puzzle, nutrition. If we're talking about building strong and healthy athletes, they need to be fueling their bodies properly.
This is where parents can really make a difference. They have a big influence on what their kids are eating at home. It's about creating a healthy food environment.
So what are the key things these young athletes should be focusing on when it comes to nutrition?
Honestly, it comes down to the basics. Lots of fruits and vegetables, lean protein, complex carbohydrates, and of course, staying hydrated.
So trading in those sugary sports drinks for good old-fashioned water.
Exactly. And cutting back on processed foods and sugary snacks, those things are just empty calories and don't give these athletes the nutrients they need.
So fuel your body with the good stuff and make it a habit, not a chore.
Perfectly said. And it's not just about what they eat, but when. Having a good pre-game meal that provides sustained energy and then a post-game meal to replenish those glycogen stores is super important.
Like having a pit crew for your body, making sure it's got the fuel it needs.
Great analogy. Now, we've talked a lot about preventing injuries, but what about the players who do get injured? How do we make sure they're getting the best possible care?
That's a good point. We need to make sure there's a qualified medical team in place, right?
Absolutely. Ideally, every youth hockey organization would have access to sports medicine professionals who really understand the demands of the sport.
So not just your general practitioner, but someone who specializes in sports injuries.
Exactly. You wouldn't go to a foot doctor for a heart problem. Hockey injuries are unique. They need a specialized approach.
So we're talking about sports medicine, physicians, athletic trainers, physical therapists, people like that.
Yep, professionals who can diagnose the problem accurately, recommend the right treatment, and create a rehab plan to get that player back on the ice safely and effectively.
And it's not just about treating the injury itself, it's about managing the whole recovery process, right?
100%. Rushing back too soon can be disastrous. It can lead to re-injury, chronic pain, all sorts of problems down the line.
So patience is key. Following those protocols and making sure the player is fully recovered before they even think about stepping back on the ice.
And that takes communication. The medical team, the coaches, the player, Everyone needs to be on the same page, working together.
Working together for the player's long-term health and well-being.
Exactly. Now, we've talked a lot about the physical side of things, but let's not forget about the mental aspect of the game. Hockey is incredibly demanding mentally, and that can impact a player's physical health, too.
Right, the pressure to perform, the fear of getting injured, all of that can take a toll.
It's like trying to skate with a heavy backpack on your mind. It slows you down and makes you more vulnerable.
So how do we address that mental side of things? How do we help these young athletes build mental resilience?
It starts with creating a team culture that values mental health.
Hmm.
Coaches need to be trained to recognize the signs of stress and anxiety in their players.
And create a safe space where players can talk about their struggles.
Exactly. We need to normalize conversations about mental health, just like we talk about physical health.
And make sure there are resources available, like sports psychologists or mental health professionals who can help.
They can help players develop those coping mechanisms and build that self-confidence they need to thrive in this demanding environment.
So it's not just about physical training and nutrition, it's a whole person approach, mind and body.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up this section, I want to touch on something that I think is super important. The culture of hockey itself.
Yeah, the unwritten rules, the expectations. That can sometimes work against player health.
It's a tough conversation,
Yeah.
but we can't ignore it.
Because we can talk all day about prevention strategies and new technology, but if the culture of the sport is sending the wrong message, it's all for nothing.
100%. And one of the biggest challenges we need to overcome is this toughness mentality. The idea that you have to play through pain no matter what.
That suck it up and keep skating attitude that's been around forever.
And while resilience and determination are definitely important in sports, we need to be careful not to glorify playing through injuries.
Because that makes players afraid to speak up when they're hurting, worried about looking weak or letting the team down.
And that can be dangerous. An injury that's ignored can get worse, lead to chronic problems that could have been avoided.
So how do we change this mindset? How do we create a hockey culture where players feel supported to take care of their bodies?
It's going to take everyone working together. Coaches, trainers, parents, the players themselves. We need to start having honest conversations about the risks of playing through pain.
We need to redefine toughness. True toughness isn't ignoring your body. It's having the courage to take care of yourself so you can have a long and healthy career.
I love that. And it means creating a team culture where players feel empowered to talk to their coaches and trainers.
Where it's okay to say, hey, I need a break, or something doesn't feel right.
Exactly. And coaches need to be trained to listen to those signals and prioritize their players' long-term health. Winning is important, but it shouldn't come at the cost of a player's well-being.
It's about fostering a culture of care, where everyone is invested in keeping these young athletes healthy and thriving. And that's something worth fighting for. Welcome back for the final part of our deep dive into the world of junior elite hockey. Over the last couple of weeks, we've really dug into the health challenges these amazing young athletes face.
We've seen some pretty alarming stats and talked about some of the cultural factors that can put players at risk.
But today is all about solutions. We're going to look at how cutting-edge sports science and technology are changing the game for the better.
I'm excited to get into it. This is where we start to feel hopeful about the future of hockey.
Exactly. And there is a lot to be hopeful about. One area that's really taking off is wearable technology. Like, imagine sensors in a player's gear that can track all sorts of things. Heart rate, exertion levels, even the impact forces they experience during a game.
It sounds futuristic, but it's actually happening right now.
Really, like right now, coaches are using this stuff.
Oh, yeah. And the data they're getting from these wearables is incredible. It helps them make better decisions about training lows, when players need rest, even identify potential injury risks before they become serious problems.
So it's like a personalized health monitor for each player.
You got it. And this technology is only going to get more sophisticated.
It makes you wonder, will we be able to predict injuries before they even happen someday?
Maybe. It's definitely something researchers are working on. And, while we're talking about personalized approaches, there's some really interesting stuff happening in the field of genetics, too.
Genetics. Okay, now you're getting a little over my head. How do genes play into sports injuries?
Well, scientists are finding that certain genes can make some athletes more susceptible to specific types of injuries. Like some people might have genes that make their tendons more prone to tears, or their bones more likely to fracture.
So are you saying our DNA can actually make us more likely to get hurt?
It's not a guarantee, but it can definitely increase the risk. And as we learn more about these genetic markers, we can start developing more personalized prevention strategies.
Wow. It's like having a crystal ball that can tell you what to watch out for.
Not magic, it's science.
Hmm.
And the more we understand about this stuff, the better we can protect these young athletes.
So we've got sensors tracking their every move and genetic testing to identify their vulnerabilities. What else is on the horizon?
Remember how we talked about nutrition being so important for performance and recovery? There's some cool things happening there too.
Always up for learning about new ways to fuel my body. Tell me more.
Well, there's this trend towards using nutrition not just to provide energy, but to actively promote healing and reduce inflammation.
So are we talking about like superfoods that can help you recover faster?
It's more about a targeted approach. There are certain foods and supplements that have powerful anti-inflammatory and healing properties.
Okay, examples please. What should these athletes be stocking up on?
Well, tart cherry juice is getting a lot of attention for its ability to reduce muscle soreness and inflammation. And omega-3 fatty acids, those are found in fatty fish like salmon, can also help the body recover.
So eating your veggies is important, but it's also about choosing foods that can specifically help your body bounce back.
That's the idea. And let's not forget sleep. Your body does a lot of its repair work while you're sleeping.
Yeah, sleep is definitely my weak spot, and I'm not even a competitive athlete. Any tips for getting better sleep?
Sticking to a consistent sleep routine, going to bed and waking up around the same time each day is huge. And limiting screen time before bed is crucial. That blue light messes with your sleep.
Guilty as charged. So put down the phone, step away from the computer.
Yeah.
Got it. What else?
Making sure your bedroom is cool, dark, and quiet can really help. And you could even try some relaxation techniques before bed, like deep breathing or meditation, to calm your mind.
Okay, I'll try that. But back to the hockey players. We've talked tech, nutrition, sleep. What about actual treatments for injuries? Is there anything new and exciting happening there?
There is. We're starting to see really promising results with regenerative medicine. These are therapies that actually use your body's own healing power to repair damaged tissues.
So instead of just masking the pain or doing surgery, we're actually helping the body heal itself.
Exactly. Things like stem cell injections and platelet-rich plasma therapy are showing great potential for treating all sorts of sports injuries.
Is this like the fountain of youth for athletes?
Not quite. These therapies are still fairly new, and we need more research to understand their long-term effects, but the initial results are really encouraging.
It sounds like we're on the cusp of some major breakthroughs in how we treat sports injuries. Pretty exciting.
It is. It gives us a lot of hope. But it's important to remember that technology and treatments are only part of the solution.
Right. We can't just rely on fancy gadgets and new therapies. We have to change the way we think about athlete health in general.
You said it. All the tech in the world won't make a difference if we don't change the culture.
We need a culture that puts prevention first, encourages open communication about injuries, and supports athletes throughout their recovery.
We need to empower those athletes to be involved in their own health care, help them understand the risks, and make smart decisions about their bodies.
It's about everyone working together. Athletes, coaches, trainers, parents, medical professionals, everyone.
And that's what's so inspiring about this whole conversation. We're seeing a real shift in how people approach athlete health.
It gives me a lot of hope for the future of hockey. We've got the science, the passionate people, and the awareness. It's all coming together.
And at the end of the day, that's what matters. Helping these amazing young athletes reach their full potential while staying healthy and loving the game.
Well said. This has been an incredible deep dive. We've explored the challenges, but we've also seen the incredible potential for change.
Thanks for joining us. Whether you're a coach, a parent, a player, or just a fan, you have a role to play in building a healthier future for hockey.
Stay informed, stay engaged, and keep the conversation going. Thanks for listening, everyone. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries.
Thanks for tuning in to the Science of Hockey. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share it with your friends, teammates, or anyone who loves hockey as much as you do. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And we'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment to let us know what you liked, what you'd like to hear next, or any questions you have. Your feedback helps us make the show even better. Until next time, keep your skates sharp, your mind open, and keep chasing the science behind the game.